Hi, welcome to my first webinar ever. So to introduce me, I'd like to introduce my friend, Mary Wolkin.
Thanks, Meryl. It's such a delight to be here today, and I'm honored that you chose me to introduce you for this lovely seminar. Meryl and I go way back, maybe to 1979, maybe before that, we're not quite sure. But one thing that always attracted me to Meryl, and that hasn't changed over the years, is that when she walks into a room, she lights the place up. Her heart shines. She's got a smile as broad as Tucson, and she just attracts people to her, and it shows the quality of her heart and the soul behind her business. There's a quote that I would like to give you right now, and it says, this is from Hazrat Anaya Khan. It says, when power leads and wisdom follows, the face of wisdom is veiled and she stumbles. But when wisdom leads and power follows, they arrive safely at their destination. Meryl certainly exemplifies the wisdom of that statement. She is the real deal, and she walks her walk. For many years, she hid her eating habits from the world, more than 20 years. And as she grew, it came to a point where she wasn't comfortable with that anymore. The anxiety, the stress that she brought onto her own life, it just didn't cut it anymore. She had to find a solution. And that solution, as we know, always comes from this push inside. When we want to do more than what we're doing, we get this push. Meryl got that push when she was about 30 years old. She began her journey out of low self-esteem, depression, and her quest to understand, accept, and conquer those cravings and demons that were on her plate began. Her quest to find herself and her mission took her to many types of modalities. She became a licensed clinical counselor. She worked, she studied, she tried out many kinds of therapeutics. When she found the masters of tapping, she found her home. As she developed that process over the years, she eventually created a program that's called SourceTapping. She lives that model that she developed. And she uses this technique and has used it with me and gobs of groups that I've been in with her that she gives away so freely to people in these groups. And I watch people in those groups change, literally before my eyes, as she says, okay now, just tap on these points. Life traumas get less, stress goes down, anxiety decreases, depression lifts, emotional discomfort fades into a poor dream. And as all those faded for Meryl, so did the beast that haunted her plate and her emotional eating. I'm so happy that she's my friend. I'm thrilled that she's gotten rid of the demon on her plate and that she has a best-selling book now, Stop Eating Your Heart Out, the 21-day program to free yourself from emotional eating. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my friend and colleague, Meryl Hershey-Beck.
Thank you so much, Mary. And I'd like to say to our viewers immediately that technology isn't my forte. We've had this all set up, and I have no idea why, as Mary's talking and I'm sitting here very quietly, it kept jumping back to me. So I hope you guys didn't get dizzy. And if you were to lose the broadcast, what I'll need you to do is just refresh your browser and come on back. So welcome, everybody. I'm so excited to be able to teach source tapping in this way. As I said before, this is my first time that I can teach it to a group of people who aren't here in my living room, but you are. You're all here. And I'm just delighted that I can be here with you. I'll tell you a little bit more about me. Mary said a lot of my history. I suffered from binge eating disorder for over 20 years. And for me, it was hell. It was just total hell. It got so bad that as an adult, I would go to the grocery store, and I always wanted to look good. So I'd make sure I didn't see anybody I knew if I was going to put stuff in my cart, you know, the ice cream and potato chips and cookie stuff. And if they didn't see me, then my belief was I can do it because nobody notices. As long as I look good, that's what counts. And so I'd buy the stuff. And my husband at the time, he was traveling. He was a traveling salesman. He wasn't here. However, I would go into the bakery section of the grocery store and I'd say, oh, my husband likes this, this, and this, because I wasn't going to tell anybody I was eating it. And of course I was. But to make sure that I was doing it all as a, quote, good girl, I would always have milk with my sweets and my other food to make it a complete full protein and making it healthy. So I tried convincing myself for years that I was doing the best I can and I was eating as healthy as I could because I had milk with my cookies and everything else. Some of you may relate to my Oreo story. I would go to the store and buy Oreos. And actually, I'll tell you a story about Oreos later if I remember, or in a minute. And so I would take some Oreos, put it on a plate, pour a glass of milk, eat the Oreos. There's still milk left. Guess what? I don't like milk all by itself. So I had to eat more Oreos. Eat more Oreos, drink the milk. Oh, milk's gone. Put more milk in the glass. Drink the milk, eat the Oreos. Oh, Oreos are gone. Anyway, I'd keep going until I ran out of milk or ran out of Oreos. And this would happen with other foods too, but that's typical. And I would feel so sick that I would lie down and curl up in a fetal position, chew a few Pepto-Bismol tablets, and wait for the pain to go away. And when it did, I got up and I ate some more. That's crazy. It's crazy. I knew I was out of control, but I didn't know what to do about it. I'm going to tell you about the Oreos now since I may not remember later. Some people really believe that sugar is an addiction, and it's as strong an addiction as cocaine and heroin. And the studies show that when they feed sugar to rats, the receptors in the brain, same areas light up as they do for heroin and cocaine. Well, they actually tried giving the rats Oreos. And the Oreos, when they had a choice between Oreos, cocaine, and heroin, and the rats chose the Oreos. And they ate them the way so many of us do. They ate the fillings first. And I thought, isn't that interesting? It's like an IV of sugar going right into their veins because the filling was the part that had the most sugar. So I remember to tell you the Oreo story about, some foods have an addictive quality. And for me, when I went into recovery, what I discovered is I could not have food around my house unless I could eat it in moderation. There's many foods, just like the Lay's potato chip commercial. I bet you can't eat just one. I couldn't eat just one of a lot of things. So I just didn't have them around. When I was 29 years old, that was a long time ago, I found my way into 12-step recovery rooms. And for some people, they say, oh, I'm home. For me, I said, I don't like it here. I mean, they were talking about feelings, and it was very intense, and it didn't feel very comfortable. There were pictures of Jesus and crosses, and I was born Jewish, so I didn't feel very comfortable. So even though I didn't feel comfortable in those rooms, probably for 2 years, there's two reasons I kept coming back. Number one, I saw people lose weight and keep it off. Actually, I'm going to add a third reason. The second reason is after a while, I felt home. I felt like I had people there that I could bond with, and I needed to feel comfortable. In fact, that's where I learned to start taking down the wall and let people know who I really am, and started sharing myself. And I did it little at a time. I'd say I did blah, 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 and I expected somebody to say, oh, my goodness, because my inner critic was telling me that. Oh, my goodness, I can't believe you did that. But instead they said, oh, dear, we've done that too. Or tell us more. They were loving and accepting, and I needed that. And the other reason that kept me coming back, the much less noble reason, but the truthful reason, I just happened to be a soap opera addict. I loved soap operas. I loved watching and seeing what was going to happen tomorrow and tune in, da-da-da-da. Well, when I'd go to the meetings, we would be sitting in a circle, and everybody would check in. And somebody would say, like Susan would say, oh, I wonder if Jerry's going to ask me out tonight. And maybe Charles would say, oh, I'm going to tell my parents that I'm gay this week. Well, next week, I had to go back. Did Susan go out with Jerry? Did Charles tell his parents he was gay? I needed to find out. So it wasn't a noble reason, but sometimes they say whatever keeps you coming back, that's fine. Now, I know many of you have either tried 12-step recovery or thought about it, and you just are not, that doesn't work for you, and that's okay. I just want you to know that that was my first step. And because of that, when I wrote Stop Eating Your Heart Out, the 21-day program to free yourself from emotional eating, almost all these tools are the tools that I used for myself and then later for my clients. And the reason I became a licensed counselor is because I was sponsoring so many people, and they were doing so well and feeling so much better. And they were doing these tools, you know, meditation and journaling and inner child work and creative visualization and forgiveness work and making amends. They were feeling better, and I was feeling better. And those were my people, and that's how I got my start into recovery. In 1990, I became a therapist, and I did the usual talk therapy. You know, the client would sit across from me, and my clients were almost all 12-step recovery folks. And they'd sit across from me, and we'd do the traditional talk therapy. And later on, we did things called Bataka work, which is getting rid of your anger with, you know, foam bats. And that was fine. And then I discovered something that was totally weird for me. And my first example of being in a weird practice and learning something weird was something called EMDR. It doesn't matter if you know it or not. I just want you to hear that it looks really strange because the therapist takes her hand or his hand and the client follows the fingers, and all these emotions will come up to be cleared. Now, I studied that so that I could really help my folks with sexual abuse trauma heal it, and it was working. And they were getting better. And I used it for people with overeating, and they were getting better. And I like EMDR. A few years later, however, my friend in Tucson says to me, I'm learning something that involves touching acupressure points. Do you want to go with me to the class? You just tap on these things. And I said, Melanie, I'm already doing one weird thing. I'm not doing any more. So I did not jump in as soon as I heard about it. It took me a little while. And the reason I got involved in it is because my colleague Robin Trainer Macy and I went back to Cleveland every month. I was living in Tucson, and we returned to Cleveland, and we do core belief workshops. And we go around and check in, and people would tell us what their issues were, and then they do the work on it. And I took out every tool in my toolbox with this one woman, and Robin took out every tool in her toolbox. It wasn't shifting. So I got on the phone, and I called Melanie, and I said, okay, how do you do that thing, that tapping thing? And she told us over the phone where the woman should tap and what she should say. And it cleared like this. So I thought, okay, I got to learn this stuff. So energy psychology, most people are aware of EFT, and that's what I learned. I learned TFT and EFT, and I studied with the founders. I studied with Gary Craig and Tapas Fleming and Larry Nims. And we took this back to our clients, Robin and I, and our clients said, this stuff's great. Where's the higher power? Remember, these are people that are 12-step recovery folks. And we said, that part's not included. So they do the tapping. They'd come back the following week, and I'd say, how did you do with the tapping? And they would say things like, well, I forgot where to tap. Oh, I forgot what to say. So we came up with a script. And Robin and I together, we collaborated, and we wrote up something called Rapidly Integrated Transformation Technique, or RIT. And we've been teaching it since 1998, so it's a long time. There are a lot of people that have experienced RIT and have had lots and lots and lots of success. Recently, however, I've been adding some components to it, and so now it is called SourceTapping. For those of you who are familiar with tapping, the things that you'll notice that are different, one, it brings in the higher power. And when I work one-on-one with a client, I'll say, what word are you comfortable with? God, source, creator, higher power. And occasionally I'll have someone that says, I'm agnostic, or I'm an atheist, and we use higher self. The second thing it does is, again, uses a script. Remember I said my clients couldn't remember where to tap or what to say? Well, there's a script, and those of you who haven't downloaded will have a chance to do it on SourceTapping.com website. And when you look at the script, you'll see that the words are very similar for each point, and we're going to go over it very soon. And when we look at the script, you'll see that it talks about imagining the word tree. And the branches of the tree are what we're conscious of, and the roots of the tree are what we're unconscious of. And we don't have to bring it up to our memory to be re-traumatized. We can just tap and tell our subconscious to clear it all the way down to the roots. So the third thing that it does, when the other techniques, almost all of them, you have to identify one certain feeling. Well, our folks who are 12-step recovery people couldn't identify one feeling. They didn't have labels for it, or I'd say, well, are you feeling angry or sad? And they go, yeah, both. And what we do with SourceTapping is we release multiple feelings at once. You don't have to identify just one feeling. Another thing that is included in SourceTapping is you can how's that word go? Individualize what you say at each point. So for instance, when we're tapping here, we're going to talk about releasing the sadness. And then I'll say, and the sadness is about, and in your own mind, you decide what it's about, and you can clear that too. Or the fear is about, or whatever the different points are. Now, the points were given to us with the help of our colleague and friend, Dr. Jim Durlacher, and there's people that disagree with which feelings or which points. It doesn't matter. So if you don't have the script handy and you want to go out and tap on yourself and you say a different point, if I say label this sadness and you want to say hurt, fine. One of the cool things about this is you can't do it wrong. There may be ways you can do it a little bit better, but you can't do it wrong. And so relax. It's sort of fun to do. Another thing that SourceTapping does is it brings in a positive. because when we clear out all these things from all these different points, these acupressure points, nature abhors a vacuum. So put something positive in. And I ask my client, what would you like to be feeling? And they will say, oh, peaceful, calm, happy, whatever it is. And we can bring that in. And then we're going to add something that I'm calling the pleasure breath. And the pleasure breath is using the belly breath, which means bringing the breath down to the belly. And as you exhale, you do it with a ha sound, H-A-H, and a smile on your face. It's pleasure, and it'll look like this. Ha! And we're going to have time to practice that in just a minute. So there is some difference between the other tapping techniques. Now, people who aren't familiar with tapping have said to me, why does this work? So we know that acupressure works and acupuncture works. And it's been around for thousands and thousands of years. And we have meridian systems that we can't see, but they're the energy systems that run through our body. And when we have a clog or a block or stagnation in our energy, we have physical or emotional pain. So tapping on points helps open up that clog and release the energy so it can keep flowing. The other thing that helps with it is water. Since we're electrical beings, it's helpful when we're doing the tapping that you're drinking water. In addition, David Feinstein and Dawson Church have said that there's another reason that this works. When we have these feelings, let's say I felt humiliated. You know, feeling humiliated was a trauma for me. It was not a capital T trauma, but it was a little t trauma. Being upset with somebody can be a trauma for you. And whenever we have a trauma, we get stuck in a trauma loop in our brain. And in the old days, when we had a trauma, it was because we had a tiger in the bush ready to pounce on us. Well, if we're sitting calmly tapping, we're telling our bodies that we are safe. There is no tiger in that bush. And we are rewiring our brain. I use this technique to clear traumas, to heal emotional upsets, to heal past stuff, as well as present stuff, and to curb cravings. And I'll tell you the story about cravings, and later in a few minutes we're going to be able to tap on cravings. If some of you get my blog, you can get it at stopeatingyourheartout.com/blog. And don't do it now, but in the future. And last week I wrote about my ice cream miracle. Well, it was a miracle for me. You see, when I was 6 years old, I had my tonsils out. My throat was so sore. I felt so sick. And they brought me ice cream. Well, I was able, and we do this all the time, to pair in my own consciousness, ice cream makes me feel better. We start doing that as children. We start doing that as babies, not necessarily with ice cream, but with food. When a baby is crying, the baby gets the breast or the bottle. Food makes me feel better. When we went to the doctor as little kids and the doctor gave us a shot, what does the doctor say next? Here, sweetie, here's a lollipop. We're pairing something that makes us feel good, the food, to take away the pain. And so many of us continue on through our adulthood thinking that the food will take away our pain. So back to the ice cream story. The ice cream really did take away my pain. And for years and years, I believed that ice cream was my huge comfort food. It would take away all kinds of pain. And it doesn't make sense, but if I had intestinal discomfort, I thought the ice cream was going to soothe me and take it away. You know, it didn't, but that was my drug of choice. That was the first thing I would want to go and get, was ice cream. So I followed a program recovery in the 12-step program. I stopped eating compulsively, and I started eating in moderation and following different food plans. And I chose most of the time not to eat ice cream. And I would not bring it into the house because in the old days, if I brought ice cream into the house, a quart was not enough, and a half gallon, I was embarrassed that I ate that much, but I would have. You know, I just really like my ice cream. So for years and years, my way of managing ice cream was to not have it around. Okay, so I go and visit my mom last September. She's 92 years old, and she announces that every night now she likes an ice cream cone. Okay, so first night I go into her freezer, 4 kinds of ice cream in one freezer, 3 kinds in another freezer. I could have been in heaven if I was back into compulsive overeating days. However, I was not choosing to overindulge quite that much. So I made her ice cream cone, and I had a spoonful of my favorite mint chocolate chip. The second night, I made her ice cream cone, and I had a bowlful of my ice cream, mint chocolate chip. The third night, I made her ice cream cone, and I had 2 bowls full, and I knew I was in trouble. I knew that it was getting out of hand, that I could not just eat a little bit of ice cream. Isn't it interesting? The synchronicity, the universe had it planned. The following night, I was teaching this tapping to a group at the house. And we were able, it was a longer workshop, and we were able to work in pairs. And when we worked in pairs, everybody, you know, was paired up with somebody, and there was a person it was an uneven number, and so a person left. And I said, okay, I'll work with you. And I wanted to do real work. So I went into the kitchen. I got out my favorite ice cream. I had it on a spoon. I smelled it. I licked it. I tasted it. If a scale is 0 is no cravings at all and 10 is intense cravings, I was at a 20. I mean, I wanted more than just that spoonful. I was salivating just licking it. So the intense craving. So I did the tapping that we're going to be doing in just a moment. And craving went down. I was like, wow. I mean, I thought it would, but I didn't think it would go down quite that fast. Not only did the craving go down, but the following night, I made my mom her ice cream cone. I didn't have to lick it at all. A few months later, I go back to Cleveland to visit my mom. I had no desire to eat any ice cream. A few months later, I went to visit her. Again, you know, I take the spoon from making her ice cream and I don't lick it. I just put it right in the sink. Who is this person? Then I've discovered when I went back July, just a couple weeks ago, I decided to taste the ice cream. And I tasted one flavor, and it tasted like freezer burn. And I tasted another flavor, and it tasted chemical. It tasted artificial. I went, oh, I'm so surprised. I still had to try one more thing because the next day or a few days later, I'm at the airport. And because my flight was canceled, they gave me a voucher for food, and I thought, oh, I'll go get a gelato. They have mint chocolate chip. Could I have a little taste, please? And they give me a taste. I had no interest in it. I have a food voucher in my hand that I have to use. I had no interest. It totally blew me away. Totally blew me away. So for those of you who have cravings, this technique works. And in just a few minutes, we're going to be able to do it with you. I'm going to go over what we do and the points that we use, and we're going to be able to tap together. And Mary's going to help. She's going to be my echo. So I would like each of you, we'll do the craving next. We're going to start with something that bothers you. Think about some emotional distress, something that's upsetting you, something that's bothering you. And it could be something from today. Oh, you know, you didn't get a phone call back from somebody that said they'd call you back. It could be something that happened a week ago. It could be happened when you were a child and you were punished and you didn't really do anything wrong. So just think about something that bothers you. And if you have a scratch piece of paper around, write down the intensity. And the scale that we're going to use is 0 is no feelings at all, and 10 is intense pain. And the reason I'm asking you to write down the number is sometimes we forget what we started at, and this way you'll have it on a piece of paper. So, Mary, I'm going to ask you to think about something that bothers you, and you don't have to tell us what it is, but when you're ready, just tell us what the number is.
An 8.
Okay, so Mary's is an 8, and I'm going to go over all the points with you, and we'll do it again when we're actually going through the script. So this is called the karate chop point. It's the edge of your hand, either hand, and you can't do it wrong, the edge of your hand between your little finger and your wrist, and I recommend tapping with 2 or 3 fingers from the other hand. Again, either hand. That's the karate chop point. And then the heart point is also known as the sore spot. If you're wearing a pacemaker, use the right side of your chest. Otherwise, in the U.S., we pledge allegiance here. If you're not in the U.S., it's the point between your collarbone and your shoulder. If you poke around, ow, you'll go ow, and that's your sore spot. And you're going to gently rub around in a circle. By the way, that's a point that was in the original protocol with Gary Craig, the EFT protocol, and then they took it out. And our client said, oh, but I like that point. It was so comforting. Now I'm going to go to the top of the head, and I usually just sort of go around in a circle. It's up to you. The inside edge of your eyebrows. So over the bridge of your nose, it's where your eyebrows begin. I like to do it 2 fingers of each hand. And I often alternate. You don't have to. Some people do one hand and touch both eyebrows at once. Some people touch one eyebrow. Whatever works for you, it's okay. Either way. So we're going to be tapping that point. Under the eye point. Now under the eye, you'll feel a notch right there in the bone. And I'm going to give you a little aside. For those of you who don't know the history of tapping, Roger Callahan was working with a woman who was so afraid of water, she'd take a bath in this much water. If it was raining, she wouldn't go out. And she had had this phobia for as long as she could remember. And he became interested in the meridian system and Chinese medicine and applied kinesiology and said to her, Mary, can we try something else, try something new? Because he had worked with her for 2 years and there was making very little progress. And she said, sure. So he said, think about water. Isn't it interesting? We have 2 Marys. We have Mary from before and Mary now. Think about water, and her fear went way up, and then he just tapped right here. And in just a few moments, she said, it's gone. And he looked at her like, what? And she says, it's gone. And she went out to the backyard by the swimming pool. And he yells out, oh, Mary, don't go in. You can't swim. And she yells back, Dr. Callahan, it took away the fear. It didn't make me stupid. And never came back. So he realized that he was really onto something. And he figured out for him which points go with which feelings, and that was the beginning of thought field therapy. Later on, it became, Gary Craig made some changes, and it became emotional freedom technique. But that's how it started in terms of Roger Callahan and using this point, and that's the point that we're going to be using, the notch right under the eye. Under the nose and under the lip, and I like to do it by using the edge of my first finger and my thumb. Some people do it this way, but my thought is always, let me get as many points in as I can. Find your collarbone, and then just go 2 finger widths below it. You're going to tap there. The under the arm point, it's down, for the women, it's where your brow line goes. It's about 4 inches below your armpit. Back up to the third eye, which is between your eyebrows. Then we're going to do the wrist, the inside of the wrists together, and then a finger point. And Gary Craig used to have the 9 gamut points, and they were finger points, and sometimes he still does, but that's where these came from. So it's the inside edge of your little finger, and then your pointer finger. It's the edge closest to your thumb. So, Mary, if you put your hand up higher, I'll be able to see when you do it, okay?
Okay.
All right. Do you have any questions, Mary?
No, sounds good.
Okay. And I'm going to tell people if you have questions, and later I'll ask for comments, you can just type them right there on your under picture of me. There's a place for comments. And hopefully I'll be able to answer any questions. But if you have questions or comments, we can take a look at that soon. So everyone, if you just think about your issue, because you want to be in the thought of it. You don't want to, if your mind starts wandering like, what am I going to have for dinner? Oh, when am I going to put the kids to bed? Bring yourself back to either the script we're doing or the whatever it is that is bothering you, so you're in the thought field of it. Okay, Mary, after we did the tapping, think about your issue and tell me what number you are.
About a 6.
Okay, what were you a minute ago?
An 8.
That's what I thought. And very often I will do that. I will explain the points after I have you do an assessment, because just touching the points often makes a change. All right, I'm not sure you're going to be showing up, but that's okay. Whatever it is, this is technology for you. There you are. And what would you like to say? Higher power, God, universe, source, whatever word you like.
About mother.
Well,
Mother divine.
Divine Mother?
Mother divine.
Mother divine. Okay.
Mother. Yeah. Divine Mother's fine.
Divine Mother. So those of you who are doing it, when you're doing it on your own or with us, if that word doesn't work for you, change it. God, source, universe, whatever you want. So ready? Begin by the edge of your hand. I release this issue to Divine Mother.
I release this issue to Divine Mother.
And those of you listening can be repeating it when Mary does. Okay, I got to start again. I release this issue to Divine Mother to transform it.
To transform it.
And my relationship to it.
And my relationship to it.
Never to take this issue back again.
Never to take this issue back again.
Or passively receive it back.
Or passively receive it back.
And then gently rub around that heart point, the sore spot. Even though I have this issue.
Even though I have this issue.
I totally and completely accept myself.
I totally and completely accept myself.
If those words are hard for anyone to say, do it this way. Even though I have this issue.
Even though I have this issue.
I want to totally and completely accept myself.
I want to totally and completely accept myself.
Even though I have these feelings.
Even though I have these feelings.
I'm ready to release them now.
I'm ready to release them now.
And then the top of head. I bring in Divine Mother.
I bring in Divine Mother.
Into all the branches.
Into all the branches.
The deepest roots.
In the deepest roots.
Around this issue.
Around this issue.
Asking for healing for the highest good.
Asking for healing for the highest good.
On the inside edge of your eyebrows. I release all the sadness.
I release all the sadness.
In all the branches.
In all the branches.
To the deepest roots.
To the deepest roots.
Around this issue.
Around this issue.
And holding your finger still, I want you to think about what the sadness is and then exhale it out. Under eye. I release all the fear.
I release all the fear.
In all the branches.
In all the branches.
To the deepest roots.
To the deepest roots.
Around this issue.
Around this issue.
Holding still, think about whatever the fear is, and then exhale it out. Under nose and under chin. I mean under nose in the middle of chin, nose and under the lip. I release the shame and embarrassment.
I release the shame and embarrassment.
In all the branches.
In all the branches.
Do it under your lip with your thumb.
Oh,
Release the shame.
with that?
Okay, yeah, I release all the shame and embarrassment to the deepest roots
I release all the shame and embarrassment to the deepest roots
around this issue,
around this issue,
asking for healing for the highest good.
asking for healing for the highest good.
And then think about shame and embarrassment as you hold your fingers still, and then exhale it out with a big sigh. Just below collarbone. I release the hurt
I release the hurt
and the grief
and the grief
in all the branches
in all the branches,
to the deepest roots around this issue.
the deepest roots around this issue.
Hold, breathe in, think about the hurt and grief, and exhale it out with a sigh. Just below, 4 inches down below your armpit. If you want, some people like to do the hug instead, whichever way is comfortable. I release the guilt
I release the guilt
in all the branches
in all the branches
to the deepest roots around this issue.
to the deepest roots around this issue.
And hold in your own mind, think about the guilt, and exhale it out. Third eye, between your eyebrows. I release the trauma
I release the trauma
in all the branches
in all the branches,
to the deepest roots around this issue.
the deepest roots around this issue.
Hold, breathe in, exhale out. Think about the trauma and exhale it out. Inside wrists together. I release the pain
I release the pain
in all the branches
in all the branches,
to the deepest roots around this issue.
the deepest roots around this issue.
And think about the pain. Inhale and exhale it out. Inside edge of your little finger. Excuse me. I release the anger
I release the anger
in all the branches
in all the branches
to the deepest roots around this issue.
to the deepest roots around this issue.
And holding still, think about the anger and then exhale it out. And then the pointer finger, come up, let me see where your finger is. Yeah, it's up by the nail.
Okay.
I release all the energy
I release all the energy
invested in this issue
invested in this issue.
so I can use the energy
I can use the energy
for my own well-being.
for my own well-being.
I totally, completely forgive myself
I totally and completely forgive myself
for forgetting.
for forgetting.
I'm doing the best I can.
I'm doing the best I can.
I totally and completely forgive myself
I totally and completely forgive myself
for allowing this
for allowing this
to disturb my peace of mind.
to disturb my peace of mind.
And then take a breath, think about your issue, and tell me what's the level of distress or charge now. Again, 0 is none, 10 is high.
About a 3.
3. So it went first from an 8 to a 6 and way down to a 3. So
Right.
what I like to do for the second round, no matter where you are in terms of the scale, is to bring in a positive. So how would you like to be feeling right now? Do you want to bring in joy or love or peace or excitement? What would you like to bring in?
Love.
Love. So I would like my viewers, if you can, just to bring in whatever it is you want, but close your eyes for a moment and imagine yourself feeling that. And Mary, close your eyes and let me know when you're able to feel love.
I can.
Okay. So once you have those feelings, then we're going to start just at the top of the head, tapping the top of your head. I bring in this feeling of love.
I bring in this feeling of love.
Into all the branches.
Into all the branches.
To the deepest roots.
To the deepest roots.
Around this issue.
Around this issue.
And then inside the edge of your eyebrows. I bring in this feeling of love.
I bring in this feeling of love.
And then holding your fingers still, we're going to do that pleasure breath. So doing a belly breath, bringing the air down as low as you can, and exhaling with a smile and a sound of ha. Ha. Under your eyes. I bring in this feeling of love.
I bring in this feeling of love.
Holding it. Again, taking a breath and exhaling with a smile on your face. Under the nose and under the lip at the same time. I bring in this feeling of love.
I bring in this feeling of love.
And exhaling again with a ha and a smile on your face. Just below collarbone. I bring in this feeling of love.
I bring in this feeling of love.
Taking a breath and exhaling with a ha. Under arm point. I bring in this feeling of love.
I bring in this feeling of love.
And allowing a pleasure breath with a big smile on your face. Third eye between your eyebrows. I bring in this feeling of love.
I bring in this feeling of love.
And exhaling with a smile. Inside edge of your wrist. I bring in this feeling of love.
I bring in this feeling of love.
And exhaling with a big smile. Inside your little finger. I'm feeling love.
I am feeling love.
And exhaling with a big smile. And then your pointer finger. I'm feeling love.
I'm feeling love.
And taking a big breath and a big ha with a huge smile on your face. And then go inside and tell us what you're aware of. And think about the incident. Tell us anything that's going on for you right now.
I'm feeling like the initial incident that happened was a gift.
Oh, wow.
And that it was a key, and this helped me open the door into that love.
Wow, that's huge realization. It's a huge shift in perception. Wow, so some of you listeners might not have such a big, huge shift in perception, but most people, after they've done that second round especially, are feeling good. I get comments like, I'm feeling relaxed, I'm feeling calm. And if you want to write some comments right now, do that. In fact, if you write a comment right underneath the picture, I believe, I have a gift for you that I'll tell you about later. Because I don't know who's on, and by commenting, and it doesn't even have to be any more than saying, hi, I'm here with you. Just make a comment, and then I'll tell you in a little while how I can get you. I'm going to be giving a gift to you through email. So, what was that like for you, Mary?
I've done tapping, especially with you, several times, but I think this one was by far more insightful than I'd had before, and I felt like it expanded and my awareness into traumas from the past, that it allowed a lot of it to release in the present.
Great, great. And I see we're getting comments in, and I'll read some later if we have time. This is great. This is perfect. I'm so glad you're commenting. And if anybody else has comments, just while I'm talking, just you can keep commenting, and if I have a chance, I'll read some of those later. And anyone commenting, I'll be sending you a gift. So I want to move right into how to use this for cravings. Okay, Mary?
Sure.
Is there any food that you crave yourself?
Oh, never. No, always. One thing that I've used as a craving, quote, therapeutic in my mind is these, what do they call them? They're like ginger squares, so that it helps calm my digestive system, but they're loaded with sugar, and I know that that isn't the world's best combination. And ginger tea and stuff don't do the same thing.
Right, right.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you and the folks watching, to pick something that you might be craving. And it could have been my ice cream, it could be Mary's ginger, whatever it is. Just think about it and imagine that you have it. You might want to just close your eyes for a moment and imagine smelling it and tasting it. And so, Mary, once you imagine smelling it and tasting it, what's your level of craving? What's the level of urge? 0 is I couldn't care less, and 10 is I want to eat it all right now.
Well, the time that I want to eat it is when I get some burning in the digestive system. So I don't really crave it otherwise.
Okay.
So that's what I use in that kind of combination. So I need to solve that, the other part of the thing, and then I will have no problem with ginger.
Right.
Ginger squares.
So there's no craving now. Is there anything that if you think about it now, you might want to crave? If not, you can just be my echo and it'll be okay.
Okay, well, let's see. Chocolate, especially with a high cacao in it, is something. And if you combine that with ginger, it's even better.
Okay, so here, Mary, I'm giving you some ginger, chocolate-covered ginger. Okay?
All right.
Now I want you to smell it and imagine tasting it and smelling it, and what's the level of craving? What's your urge right now?
About a 7.
Okay. So those of you watching, again, write your number down so you can compare it in case you have some memory issues like I sometimes have, like I can't remember what my number was. If not, you can just remember it and check it out. Whatever works for you is fine. And we're going to be doing the same thing. Are you okay, since some people might not have related to Divine Mother, if we just go to higher power?
You can use whatever you want.
Okay. And so, again, whatever word you're comfortable with, and again, either hand, you can't do it wrong, karate chop point. Thinking about whatever it is you crave. I release this craving to my higher power.
I release this craving to my higher power.
To transform it.
To transform it.
And my relationship to it.
And my relationship to it.
Never to take it back again.
Never to take it back again.
Or passively receive it back.
Or passively receive it back.
So that this food item.
So that this food item.
Could be a drink, whatever. Becomes a choose to.
Becomes a choose to.
Rather than a have to.
Rather than a have to.
Yeah, I've had people that say, well, I don't want to get rid of my eating of whatever. Fine, you don't have to get rid of it. Let's make it a choose to rather than getting pulled back to it all the time. So it's no longer a craving, it's a choice. Okay, so top of head, I bring in higher power.
I bring in higher power.
To all the branches.
To all the branches.
To the deepest roots around this craving.
To the deepest roots around this craving.
And imagine smelling it and tasting it again, so you're actually with it again. And then go to the inside edge of your eyebrows, one or both. I release all the sadness.
I release all the sadness.
All the branches.
in all the branches,
to the deepest roots around this craving.
to the deepest roots around this craving.
And holding your fingers still, think about what the sadness is, and when you have it, inhale and exhale it out. With a sigh so I can hear you. Thank you. Under your eye, I release all the fear.
I release all the fear.
In all the branches.
In all the branches.
To the deepest roots around this craving.
To the deepest roots around this craving.
Holding still, think about the fear, and then when you have it, inhale and exhale it out. Exhale so I can hear you. Thank you. Under the nose and under the lip at the same time, I release the shame and embarrassment.
I release the shame and embarrassment.
In all the branches.
In all the branches.
To the deepest roots around this craving.
With the deepest roots around this craving.
Hold, think about the shame and embarrassment. Inhale and exhale it out. Under, just below collarbone, I release the hurt and grief.
I release the hurt and grief.
In all the branches.
In all the branches.
To the deepest roots around this craving.
The deepest roots around this craving.
Hold still, think about grief and hurt. Inhale and exhale it out. Underarm, 4 inches down below the arm pit. I release the guilt.
I release the guilt.
In all the branches.
In all the branches.
To the deepest roots around this craving.
With the deepest roots around this craving.
Holding still, breathe in and think about the guilt and exhale it out. Third eye, I release the trauma.
I release the trauma.
In all the branches.
In all the branches.
To the deepest roots around this craving.
The deepest roots around this craving.
Holding still, think about the trauma. And when you have it, inhale and exhale it out. By the way, sometimes I have clients that don't have anything, they can't think of that point, and they say to themselves, well, if there is any trauma, I'm exhaling it out now. So it's acting as if. Inside edge of your wrist. I release the pain.
I release the pain.
In all the branches.
In all the branches.
To the deepest roots around this craving.
To the deepest roots around this craving.
Holding still, think about the pain, and then inhale and exhale it out. Inside edge of your little finger. I release the anger.
I release the anger.
In all the branches.
In all the branches.
To the deepest roots around this craving.
To the deepest roots around this craving.
Holding it, think about the anger. Inhale, exhale it out. We're going to add a point that we didn't do before, and it's known as the addiction point. So with your right hand, if you put it on top of your left hand, where your thumb hits, it's an acupuncture or an acupressure point. That's an addiction point, and it could be on either hand. This is on the left hand right now. And I usually describe it by saying, if you find the webbing between your thumb and first finger, go all the way straight down to your wrist. You can do that whole line. So let me see your hands, Mary, where you are. Okay. I release the addiction.
I release the addiction.
In all the branches.
In all the branches.
To the deepest roots around this craving.
To the deepest roots around this craving.
Holding still, think about the addiction. When you have it, breathe in and exhale out. And then last one is your pointer finger. I release all the energy.
I release all the energy.
Invested in this craving.
Vested in this craving.
So I can use the energy.
So I can use the energy.
To my own well-being.
For my own well-being.
I totally and completely forgive myself.
I totally and completely forgive myself.
For forgetting.
For forgetting.
I'm doing the best I can.
I'm doing the best I can.
I totally and completely forgive myself.
I totally and completely forgive myself.
For eating more than this than I probably need.
For eating more of this than I probably need.
And stuffing myself more than probably once in a while.
Stuffing myself more than once in a while.
And forgiving myself for having eaten too much.
And forgive myself for having eaten too much.
And I ask my higher power.
And I ask my higher power.
To allow this to become a choose to.
To allow this to become a choose to.
Rather than a have to.
Rather than a have to.
And then, closing your eyes, here's your chocolate-covered ginger again. Smell it, taste it, tell me what you're aware of and what the number is now.
About a 1.
Wow. So what did we go from? From where to where?
From a 7 to a 1.
Okay. And what did you say? It doesn't even smell good?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me just say, this is a technique that we learned from Gary Craig, and we always used Hershey Kisses whenever he would teach it. And by the end, honestly, the chocolate tasted chemical. It tasted like lard or Crisco. It was like it changed it. And so you'll understand now, many of you who are experiencing this for yourself, like how I was able to not enjoy the ice cream anymore. I mean, it doesn't mean I'll probably give it up forever. I might want to have some once in a while, but it doesn't have any pull anymore. And you're going to let us know how you do with the chocolate-covered ginger in the future. But for now, there's absolutely no craving. So let's bring in something positive. And what would that be? You want to bring in joy?
Freedom.
Freedom. Oh, yeah, that's a great one. Let me say, you don't have to bring in just one thing. Viewers, sometimes I go, oh, I'm going to bring in freedom and joy. I'm going to bring in freedom and peace. You could bring in more than one thing at a time. So each of you pick what you'd like to bring in. Mary and viewers, close your eyes. Imagine feeling whatever it is you're wanting to bring in now. So we're going to be bringing in freedom. So closing your eyes to picture that. And Mary, tell me when you have that, when you're feeling it.
I'm picturing the digestive freedom now.
Okay. Can you feel it in your body?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we're going to do, again, the top of the head. I bring in this feeling of freedom.
I bring in this feeling of freedom.
Into all the branches.
Into all the branches.
To the deepest roots around this craving.
To the deepest roots around this craving.
Inside edge of your eyebrows. I bring in this feeling of freedom.
I bring in this feeling of freedom.
And allow a pleasure breath.
And allow a pleasure breath.
What did you say?
I was repeating what you were saying.
Oh, okay. Did you do the breath? I didn't pay attention. Yeah, and make sure you're smiling. It's a pleasure breath. Go under eye. I bring in this feeling of freedom.
I bring in this feeling of freedom.
And allow a breath. A pleasure breath with a big smile. Yay, good. Under nose and under chin. I bring in this feeling of freedom.
I bring in this feeling of freedom.
And allow a pleasure breath. Just below collarbone. I bring in this feeling of freedom.
I bring in this feeling of freedom.
Allow a breath. Underarm. I'm feeling this freedom. I'm feeling this freedom.
I'm feeling this freedom.
And the pleasure breath with a smile. Third eye between your eyebrows. I'm feeling this freedom.
I'm feeling this freedom.
And allow a pleasure breath. Inside edge of your wrists. I'm feeling this freedom.
I'm feeling this freedom.
How about if you do your wrists together, you'll get all those points on the inside. There you go. And allow a breath. Little finger. Inside edge of the little finger. I'm feeling this freedom.
I'm feeling this freedom.
And allow a breath. Addiction point. I'm feeling this freedom.
I'm feeling this freedom.
Allow a breath. And then pointer finger. I'm feeling this freedom.
I'm feeling this freedom.
And allow a breath. And tell me what you're aware of. And viewers, write your comments. I'd like to hear what this is like for you. What's your numbers go down to? Anything you're aware of now. And in a minute, I'm going to read some of those.
Let's see. Went down from about, as far as releasing the whole thing, somewhere between a 7 and a 5. I can still feel it clicking in here. But it still feels like I have much more expansiveness in there and literally more freedom all over. So thank you.
When I did this at the Energy Psychology Conference, you know, we brought in joy, and the whole front row started to giggle. It was really cool. Oh, that reminds me, I'll tell you one quick story. So a client I'm working with, she was doing tapping on her own, and she always brought in peace, always brought in peace. And then she said to me, you know what? I decided to bring in joy, and guess what? I felt great all day. So, you know, just think how great you can feel all day long by just doing this tapping. I'm going to tell you a little bit about this page. First of all, I'll show you a little bit. So we're going to scroll down together, you know, do these statements sound familiar? Are some of the things that I said, and I'm wondering if you've ever said it, like, oh, I'm only going to have one bite? Yeah, right. I need to cut back on my eating, as if saying that does any good. I need to eat because there's nothing else to do. You know, we've all said those kind of things. And this is a little bit about my story. I'm going to have you keep scrolling. And I experienced the hopelessness and despair of emotional eating, and that included a lot of these things. And how many of them are true for you? I'm not you, Mary, but you, the audience. Eating to soothe yourself, eating to fill an inner void, eating to ease depression, eating to calm fears and anxiety, eating when feeling lonely or bored, eating without feeling any physical hunger, eating to push down unpleasant feelings. I mean, I know that. I've been there. I know that we can do something about it, and I believe that tapping is the answer. And what I'm going to show you on this page, and you'll see there's a bunch of testimonials, and it talks about SourceTapping, which you just experienced. People who aren't watching the webinar will be able to get it by clicking the link in the middle there. And by doing this tapping, you can eliminate cravings, reduce the intensity of feelings, increase your energy and feelings of well-being. And there's more quotes. Meyer Toole, who I was on the Energy Psychology Cafe with him, and he's done so many interviews with so many different energy therapy and he was amazed at this. If this describes you, you're invited to this group, and I'll tell you more about it in a moment. If you're tired of eating and beating yourself up, if you're concerned that your weight keeps creeping up, if you're feeling out of control with your eating, if you're eating too much, too fast, making unhealthy choices, if you continue to break promises that you make to yourself, and if you're feeling depressed and frustrated around your eating, I have a group that might just be the ticket for you now. So I'll give you the little bit of background of how this group came into being. There's a woman that I heard about, and she's an EFT master. Her name is Peta Stapleton. And she did a study in Australia, and in the study she had 97, I think it was 97 people that participated, 96 overweight or obese adults. And she placed them in two groups. One group was the group that was going to do tapping, and they committed to doing tapping every day for 15 minutes on whatever bothered them. The other group was called the waitlist group because they eventually, and 4 weeks later, they actually did the tapping, but they were the control group. And then they measured the differences. They were mainly checking on the amount of cravings. And after 4 weeks, there was a significant difference so that the food cravings from this group that did the tapping was way down, and so was the weight. They were not interested in weight loss. That's not something that they were going after, but when the cravings went down, the weight went down. In the control group, nothing changed. So with that information, I'm wondering what it would be like if each of us were to tap every day for 15 minutes, how our lives would be different. In the middle of the page, you'll see it's in purple, it says, millions of people have experienced the benefits of tapping. We all know we feel better after we tap, but we don't do it. Life gets in the way. We forget. We're busy. Our eating is still out of control. We're snacking too much. We're eating more and enjoying it less. So if you would just, for a moment, close your eyes and imagine how would your life be different if every day for the next 30 days you were to tap for 15 minutes. And the tapping might be 15 minutes all at once, or maybe 3 times a day you'll tap for 5 minutes. You might want to tap for cravings, or you might tap directly on what's bothering you. Because if we don't tap on what's bothering us, then the food calls us. So I bet if you were tapping every day for a month, you'd feel less stress, you'd have more consciousness around your eating, you'd feel more spiritually connected, and you wouldn't be as interested in what used to be your comfort foods. And what I'm going to have you do is keep scrolling down, and there's a whole bunch of testimonials of people who've been doing this tapping, and tell you more about the 30-day Tap into Consciousness group. Now, we all know we can tap without group support. The question is, will we do it? Are we going to be tapping? Are you going to be tapping every day if you don't have group support? How many times have I told myself I would do it? I'm doing it now because I have some tapping buddies, and we talk about it. And that's what I'm offering you. I'm offering a place where we can get together, and there'll be calls, we'll have an accountability partner. Some of the things that you will experience are feel more connected to your higher power, increase your self-confidence, lift depression, halt emotional eating, eliminate binges, get support to tap every day. So if you're interested, if this is calling you, keep scrolling down, and this is what you'll receive as a member of the group. And I hope you read some of these testimonials later. I mean, like Lori Clark, the end of her testimonial, she wrote, "Pray to find a way to let go of old hurts. Tapping is that answer to prayer." I mean, like, wow, that touched my heart. So as a member, if you decide to join this group, you receive the script, the SourceTapping script with the diagram of points. By the way, the diagram, if you don't have it, it's no longer labeled with numbers. Now it has what the feeling is. So here it'll say fear, and here it'll say, and the eyebrow here it'll say sadness, and here it'll say grief and hurt. And so it's easier, and you don't have to do it in any order. So if you want to start here and move to here, fine. You know, you don't have to follow the order I followed. You'll be getting an MP3 audio file so that you can listen to my voice, and there'll be space in there for you to echo me, and you can bring in your own image of food. You can have the food in front of you. You can do it on whatever's bothering you, whatever works. So you can tap along as you listen. There's 2 videos that I created, so you can tap as you watch. One is for something that bothers you, and the other one is for a food craving. There's going to be 3 live group calls, one at the beginning, one in the middle, one at the end, so we can all get together and share experiences. You'll have 1 individual call with me. I have set up a private Facebook group, and you'll be invited to that. You'll be receiving a journal so that you record your tapping experiences. You know, what you were feeling, you went from an 8 to a 6, or whatever you want to write about your tapping. And you're going to have an accountability partner. So those of you on the page, you notice there's a little asterisk. It says, for optimal results, bring your own accountability partner. And there's going to be a bonus way of doing it. Because, right, the group will be offered for $297. But you're going to be a startup member. So I'm slicing $100 off of that. And it's just $197. And if you bring that accountability partner, you bring your buddy, you bring a friend, you join together, it's just $297 for the two of you. And the group's not starting till September 1st. I'll be sending out motivational tips and hints before that. So if you're ready right now, click the button. If not, come back to it after we finish this. You're going to be making a need to make some commitments to me to be in the group. One is that you are willing and able and committing to tap every day for 15 minutes. And again, it's your schedule. It can be 15 minutes in the morning. It can be 5 minutes here and there, whatever you want. Secondly, you will commit to checking in with an accountability partner at least once a week. Third, you are agreeing to come to the 3 live calls. And I know some of you in Africa and Australia, I know I've had people all over that couldn't come to this call live. We are going to work on changing the time of the call so more people can get to it. And if you can't get to the live call, you're agreeing to listen to the replay. And you're also agreeing to own a copy of Stop Eating Your Heart Out, the book. And it comes in print format, it's an ebook format, and it's also available now as an audiobook. So those of you who are ready, just click the button now. I'm real excited to do it. I think with a group, we can really change ourselves. The group energy is going to help us change. And this page is what you go to sign up. Now, I told you before I was going to tell you a few more things about SourceTapping and how to use it. And again, I'm reminding you, if you have comments about what you've experienced, please write them in the comment section. And in a minute, I'm going to read a few of them to you. So SourceTapping can be used anytime you have an emotional upset. It can be for anything that's bothering you. Again, it doesn't have to be something right now. You can say, oh, I remember what happened when I was 20 and da-da-da-da-da. You can use SourceTapping without even having anything specific. Sometimes in the morning, as I do these morning walks, I call them my inner work walks, and sometimes I just tap, I release upcoming stress and my ability to manage it. So it's not even specific. I have a client who every night would tap and say, I release accumulated negativity. So we have plenty of things to tap about. Unless you're enlightened, there are things that bother us during the day, or we can think about it and bring it up, that emotional upset. You can tap on it. You see, when we're tapping on things that bother us, the food doesn't call us the way it used to. We have another way of dealing with those feelings that are so challenging. So those difficult feelings can be tapped down, and the ice cream and the cookies aren't calling our names, or maybe it's the fast food joint. Whatever it is, we can change that to it was. It's no longer happening. So that's what my offer is for you, and I'm hoping that some of you will join this group. It's not going to be very big, and I'm going to be working with you individually as well as in a group. I'm real excited to be doing it. I have 4 people that signed up, and I will answer questions now, and I'm going to take a look at what the comments are, because Joan is writing me, texting to me comments, and I'm going to tell you what some of the people said. And since I don't have permission to use your name, well, your name shows up for everybody, so I guess I can spell your name. And Mickey wrote, great new approach to tapping. Glenn, I think SourceTapping works well when you have a positive attitude on the desired outcome coupled to a belief in a higher power. Great technique, Meryl. You have made the complex easy to understand. Thank you. Thanks for your comment. And again, make your comments and write your name and if you send an email to stopeatingyourheartout@gmail.com saying, I made a comment, we will send you your free gift. So, other comments. Beverly, enjoyed being on the webinar. Thanks for this opportunity to see you demonstrate live. Beatrix, I feel very relaxed and yawny. Thanks for reminding me that very often when we're doing this, we yawn. That's part of our releasing. Jocelyn, I'm feeling lighter and buzzy. Deanna, this is awesome. It feels so empowering. I used my craving for sugar, and I saw your ice cream. Ha. At first, I was feeling literally sick to my stomach. By the time we were done, I felt so much at ease. Thank you. Carrie, very nice demonstration and description. Great borrowing benefits while tapping along. Appreciate all of your additional points, Meryl. So for people who are used to EFT, you'll see that we have added some of the points. And for a second, I'm going to tell you, and I see we're just about out of time. The reason the third eye point is on there is because I was talking to a woman many, many years ago, and she worked in a clinic, and she was going to see a man who said he wanted to quit smoking. And he comes in on Tuesday, and he says to her, I'm going to come in on Thursday, and I want you to help me quit smoking. Is there anything you can tell me now? And she said, yeah, just do these points. And she showed him the usual EFT points, which are basically like this. He comes in on Thursday, and he said, I quit smoking. Huh? How'd you do that? She replied, by doing what you said. So she said, what did you hear me say? And he said, well, I just sit in front of the TV, and I go, third eye, non-smoker, non-smoker, non-smoker. So that's when I put that point in. When I learned about the addiction point, why not include that when you're working with food? So some of these points have an interesting history to it. And a few other things. Oh, it went so fast. Bonnie, went from an 8 to a 2 thinking about frozen dark chocolate awaiting me. Now I'm not interested in getting it. VJ, I had a chocolate craving after dinner at 7:10. Oh, 10, then a 7, I guess, and now a 0. Yeah, I can go to bed feeling good that I got through a day without chocolate. Thanks so much. Deanna, I feel really good, totally relaxed, but my body feels tired. Normal? Yeah, sometimes because we're still releasing things. A lot of times the comments I get when people have tapped is I feel so relaxed. And sometimes we're carrying so much stress in our body that when we release it, we have that feeling of, oh, I could just close my eyes now. I feel so relaxed. Yeah, she says, I have been holding on to all this stuff and it has been released, so now my body is really, really tired. Lori, I'm excited about this. Having accountability will only make a great program even more successful. So any other questions or comments, write them now. I'm not sure if I'll have a chance to look at them now, but I'll look at them later. And again, if you'd like the free gift, all you have to do is write your comment on the YouTube little box where it says comments, and then send an email to stopeatingyourheartout@gmail.com, and all you have to say is, I wrote a comment, I'd like my gift please, and the link will be sent to you. So that's what I have for you guys. Mary, thank you so much for being my echo and my friend, introducing me and being a colleague all these years. And any last words from you?
Thank you, Meryl. You did a great job, and best of success to you and all those that you serve.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Tell others they can come to watch the replay of the webinar and join our group. See you soon. Mwah! Love ya. Bye-bye.